All right, we are here with Ken Newton, artist, entrepreneur, and man with experience in AI and machine learning. Ken, thank you for being with us. I'm really looking forward to everything you have to say about the world of art, AI, and how technology meets the world of art. Before we start, please tell us about yourself.
Awesome. Thanks. It's great to be here, Beck. So I've just been a lifelong artist ever since I could color. I've always wanted to just make drawings and paintings and whatnot. So, growing up, it was always had a pencil in my hand and went to every class I could. Always was drawing and was introduced to technology and art early in the 80s when I took a drawing in BASIC, the basic language.
Mhm.
I was drawing in BASIC, and 20 kids or so, 15 kids or so would share like three computers and one printer. So it was my first experience with technology and art together, combined computer art, and then I just grew up with technology. So in high school, I took the CAD courses, and then when I finally went to college in the early 2000s, I was all over the technology. I worked for myself as a web developer and web designer when the web boom was really taking off, and you could be an independent designer. From there, and that was my first step into being an entrepreneur and working for myself. That actually evolved into working for higher education. So I've worked at a university here in Louisiana, and then I moved to Tulane University, where I got to work with their all their scientists and researchers in different areas across their technology scope, and was introduced to early machine learning, where they were using it for genetic research, etc. And my role evolved from UI UX through the user experience, and then really got into the project management of it all. So
Mhm.
by the time 2014, 2015 rolled around, I got an offer from a corporate company, a private company up in New Jersey, New York area, and decided to make the leap from higher ed to corporate. There, I learned so much, right? Like corporate's a very different world than higher ed.
Sure.
So, uh, I was also got the opportunity to work on several machine learning projects from 2016 on through 2019, both at some small ISVs and then also at KPMG, where we worked on a risk analysis product that was machine learning backed.
Hmm.
So my exposure to machine learning has been a learning process. In the beginning, I didn't understand any of it, and then as I worked as a project manager, I'm no data scientist, but I've been around it and been around the scientists for a long, long time. So that's really my exposure to it early. And then now we've had Gen AI show up,
Yeah.
the things that we used to have the supercomputer do and the scientists do and everything else. So it's
Hey
a
Ken, things cut out for a little while. You said, and then we had Gen AI show up, and then it kind of froze there for a second. Can you really quickly repeat that part, please? And then Gen AI showed up.
yeah, and then Gen AI showed up, and now all the things that were a mystery to me before with the data science, where we needed the data scientists and the engineers and everybody to decipher and make sense of everything. Now it's all available to us,
Mm.
and the UI gets better all the time. So I've really enjoyed seeing the consumer AI show up, and I started doing the Gen AI probably in 2021,
Oh,
and then
okay,
you
before the
get on.
hype.
Yeah, well, you could get on Google Colab, and you could
Yeah.
you could spin up some models,
Yep.
and one of my favorite ones was called Ru Dali. It was Russian Dali,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Russian hack of it. So
Yeah.
you had to translate Russian
I
from
remember that.
English to
Yeah.
Russian. But it was fascinating because you knew it was trained on magazines because the what would come out of it would look like a photo bash. It would look like a collage of magazine photos.
Those earlier versions, yeah,
Yeah.
would even have things like the Getty Images logo in the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, yep. So yeah, that was kind of like my first steps into what's available now. And then
Mhm.
Midjourney showed up. I never really liked using Discord as a tool, so I
Yeah.
really did shy away from it. I used it for about maybe a week or so, and then I I had Stable Diffusion available and some other things available that and I like running them locally if I can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
That
there's
was
just
my more introduction to like Google Colab as well with Stable Diffusion,
right,
right?
right, right.
So,
And all the old diffusion models are still wonderful to use because
yeah, yeah.
I think the older models have a lot more randomness to them. They're fuzzier.
Hmm.
They don't make as much sense. I know that the goal is to get it so that it's way under control, but back then it kind of felt like you were, discovering and collaborating and finding new things. The newer models, they're awesome. I really,
Yeah, yeah.
especially the latest
Yeah.
video,
Oof.
blows my mind.
Yeah, the video stuff is what really blows my mind. Yeah. Um, when first started dabbling in videos, again, some of it was through Replicate or other open source platforms like Google Colab would host things, right? Stable Video, Stability as Video comes to mind. Yeah, those first ones were okay. Let's see what you're going to come up with, right? And now, yeah, there's so much more control with the Lumas and the Hypers, and yeah, and it's just a matter of months. Things are just taking off, you know?
And I don't see it stopping, honestly.
No, it's just gonna
I
get better
think
and better.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk of an AI bubble and stuff, and I believe that on a commercial level, an enterprise level, there it might actually see some
Some
plateau.
scale, it will be. Yeah,
'Cause you've got to deal with solving real applications,
sure,
solving real problems, whereas the
sure.
Gen AI is, I really think of it as a sketchbook, a discovery tool. I think that it's really easy to get good inspiration from it, and then we can get on further into the ethics of it and all that kind of stuff. But just as an imagination friend, right? Like somebody to just bounce ideas off of.
Exactly,
It
exactly.
still amazes me. So
And especially for someone like me who okay, I can think on a musical basis, right? But drawing, I mean, I have trouble drawing a stick figure, you know? Just on that front, so I can put my thoughts onto a screen is
right,
where to me this is super, super valuable, right?
yeah, yeah, and I think some artists get Um, I don't want to, say it's ego and pride. I'm sure there's some of that, but some traditional artists feel like it's cheating, and I, I go back and forth on it. As an
Yeah.
artist, but I mean, one of the things that I stick by is that it's still your responsibility as a creator. What you put out there in the world. If you put crap out there in the world, then that's what people see.
Hmm.
People who take art seriously or really want to put good stuff out there, they're the ones that are going to stand out. They're the ones that take the most time with what they're building, and they're usually the ones that aren't satisfied with what Gen AI puts out. I'm not satisfied with what comes out. I think it's cool, it's fun, it's neat, but invariably none of it's perfect. I have to
Hmm.
come back and do something to it because I have a vision and it's just a tool trying to get to my vision. Anything else is somebody else's vision, or
Right.
whatever might be coming out of it. So
That brings me directly to my main question, AI art,
hmm.
right? Whether it's music and whether it's videos or images. Okay. Is it theft? Is it inspiration? Or is it somewhere between the two?
It's both.
It's both. Okay,
I
tell
think
us about
that
it.
we have to consider data in and data out, right?
Okay.
The data in is one issue that we have to consider for all the copyright infringements that might be going on. That's a nuance that I believe that the courts are going to have to decide over after listening to experts and really going through the ideas. I really think it is because there's such a nuance to it, right? Does it, in my mind, just because it can make a perfect copy, does that mean that everything it makes a copy? Does it everything that it comes up with? Does that mean it's a
Right.
forgery? If I imagine something and tweak something into a new form, is that still a forgery?
Hmm.
Even because it was trained on copyrighted material. I don't think so, right? Like so on the data out portion, I really think it's on the creator themselves, the user themselves, to make sure they're not putting something out that's copyrighted. If it looks like Mickey Mouse, well, I guess you can do Mickey Mouse now, but if it looks like a copyrighted material, then
Hmm.
you probably shouldn't put it out there as your own.
Hmm.
I found out that I don't know if you use the AI discovery tools or the ones that detect AI, and they're awful, right? But I
Are
did
they?
find
Okay.
that Google Images is a really good thing for you to you put your output from it and then put it into Google Images, and you'll find out if it's copyrighted. You'll find out if somebody else has something posted out there.
So really interesting on that front. I mean, blunt plagiarism aside, let's say, right? A big argument, and rightfully so, I hear from artists are things like, hey, this machine, this diffuser has been trained on my style, my art that I've spent years developing, and now you can just prompt away my name, and here is a picture that I would have drawn, like in my style, right? Which is a fair argument. But I'm wondering, is that any different from, let's say, an example from my world? As a guitarist, as a wannabe musician, I've had to listen to 1,000 guitarists do 1,000 different things in 1,000 different albums, and somewhere around there, I have my own thing, right? When I put my fingers on the fretboard. Maybe one day I sound like Jimmy Page, maybe one day I sound like Eric Clapton, maybe one day I sound like Eddie Van Halen, okay?
Right.
But did I steal that? Or did that just become my thing?
Yeah,
So
yeah. I
where
think
is
the
the line?
big,
Like, is
yeah.
it any different than when a human does it versus when a machine does it?
I think the biggest difference is that when I prompt something, I'm not learning anything. I'm
Hmm.
just not learning anything. I'm not making mistakes. It's not me making a mistake. It's not me doing anything, right? So I don't learn from my mistakes. I mean, I learn how to prompt better so I can get something that looks better. But, if the lighting's wrong or if maybe some anatomy is wrong, if I don't notice it because of my prior training and experience, I'm not gonna catch it. One of the things that I notice about the people who are making the claims is that they'll go in there and say, make me a Picasso,
Hmm.
right? And then, well, I mean, that's forgery. The idea is that when I am drawing, I make mistakes. When I'm painting, I make mistakes. Well, those mistakes, eventually, you make good mistakes as well as bad mistakes, and those good mistakes become your style, right?
Hmm.
Oh, that's what creates your unique vision is when you figure something out different. And you don't figure out something different just by prompting, in my opinion, right? Like you already have to have the knowledge of what's out there, art history and what's out there in the world today in order for you to quote unquote learn from what you see from
Ah.
from the machine, right? Like you don't so as when I'm drawing and I make a special mark, well, I can make that my mark, right? Like you don't really have that in AI. People got their styles, but it's hard to say, oh, well, that's that guy's style because it's an AI image, right? Like it's still such a foggy area. I think that there's a lot of nuance when it comes to is it actually storing the image? Is it going to recreate a perfect image if I ask it to create the perfect image?
Hmm.
I don't. And then what happens? If thinking philosophically or in the future is like what happens when one of these models that's never been trained on a Picasso makes a perfect Picasso, right? Like is it possible? Will it be possible? I think so, right? Like you're able to mash together all this body of knowledge and different experiences and then say I want something in this style or a cubist, maybe in the future it will be possible. I don't know. I don't like to fall into the hype, and I try to be a harsh critic of AI and especially Gen AI
Hmm.
because I want it to be good. I mean, it's a tool. I've dreamed about making movies my whole life.
Hmm.
It was never a viable, you know, career path for me. I've never been in the environment, wasn't exposed to it, and never didn't take the whole, I'm going to go to LA and be a dishwasher till I make it. Right? I never
Right.
did that, but I think in movies. My stories are in movies. So AI, Gen AI, and the direction it's going, I'm just kind of like waiting. I'm not
Okay.
waiting. I'm building. I'm building
You're
things, but
building, right?
I, I'm waiting for it to be good enough. And even better than good enough. I want it to be really ready.
So on that thought, and you can push back on me here if you disagree, what you said about, okay, with art, let's say with Picasso or Monet, right? You've got your fingerprints, you've got your style on that piece of art. Okay. One of the things that I find super, super intriguing as again, someone I can't draw, right? Maybe a stick figure. However, and this is one of the reasons why I love open source material so much, is I can, let's say, create my own style in AI, okay, take those stylized images, go ahead and train my own model, right? And now I created an AI art model in my image. And therefore, that is my signature, right?
Maybe, right? Yeah, and I would push back on it because,
Okay,
right, I mean, you didn't photo bash things together. You asked for an image, and the computer gave you an image. It's like me asking a photographer for an image or an artist. It's asking a third party for an image
sure.
in my under, and that might change in the future. I don't know. I think that if it's coming straight from the machine, I think that there's just a lot of machine in it.
Hmm.
If you find a style that you like, that you're able to make your own, I can see what you're saying, right? Like, but now you're talking about using synthetic data and basically, right? Like you've claimed this as a style that came from the computer, you've claimed it as your own, and you fed it in as synthetic data. Like it's not
Mhm,
an object that really existed ever.
mhm.
Now the computer's trained on things that never really existed. I don't, is that going to lead to data corruption and weird things, or is it really going to bring a style out for you? Or I don't know. It's an interesting concept.
It's a fuzzy line.
I've always imagined putting all of my drawings in it, but I mean, when it comes to style, you can't own a style, and very
Uh-huh.
few artists ever have their own style, in my opinion. I mean, everyone, if they're like me, they're curious and they're always looking at new things, always
Uh-huh.
trying new things, always wanting to check out, and you get tired of things, right? Like I might draw for 6 months and you're just tired of drawing, so then I'll paint and then get tired of that, etc. So I think that curiosity is what's kept me going with the technology, and it's also what keeps me from finding my own style. To be honest with you, I don't have a style, but I have a theme, right? Like I'm always talking about technology. That's in my art, whether it's physical traditional art or if I get into the AI Gen AI art. I'm always wanting to talk about humans and technology.
Hmm. I will say, going back to the whole style thing, like in the LinkedIn AI community and LinkedIn artist AI artist community, I definitely know people who I could just take a look at one of their pictures and go, "Yep, that's he or that's she,"
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So you definitely, in my opinion, do see fingerprints forming. It's there. Now, I
Yeah.
want to ask you one more question about this. And I think this is an exhilarating conversation. So, okay, one of your arguments is that just because a machine came up with it, it's an algorithm that came up with it, and then I took this and let's say trained an AI model in that style. Is that really my style? Okay, let's flip that for a second. A photographer takes a picture. That picture goes through a ton of editing, Photoshop, airbrushing, so on and so forth. Okay, at that point, is that a legitimate creation of that photographer? And
Right.
how is this any different?
Yeah, you brought up Photoshop, which is, obviously something that we should probably talk about in this context because, uh, you know, traditional photographers use the dark room. They made their accidents with light and chemical, and that became their style, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, I like the way this is blurred, or I like the way this is whatever, and that becomes their style. So, uh, yeah, it's an interesting concept when you bring in Photoshop. I was around when Photoshop and photo, bashing was new, and it was frowned upon. You
Yeah,
weren't a
okay,
real
all
artist
right.
if you use Photoshop. You weren't a real artist.
Well, there
'Cause
you go. Yeah.
you had Control Z, right? Like you can undo. You can't undo when you're painting.
Uh-huh.
So that was always the big argument. It's like, oh well, you can just undo, so it's not real art, you know.
There,
And
case in
now
point. Yeah.
today, it's sold for millions and millions of dollars. Some of it.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think that I know from art history that it's edging on avant-garde today, and anything avant-garde usually finds its way into the mainstream, right? So I think that there is a large chance that AI, video, AI, all this stuff will become much more mainstream.
Yeah, yeah, and then
And,
we're
and I
getting
mean,
there.
I mean beyond art, right? Like there's no doubt it's going to be commercial. It's going to be everywhere. We already see it everywhere on all the socials, and before it's all over with, it'll be every commercial you see. And unfortunately, I think we're going to enter the death of the internet, like they say, and it'll be a bunch of AI bots talking to AI bots, and
For what it's worth, yeah.
yeah, but I think it's going to increase the value of human engagement. It's going to increase the value of physical human art. Um, I think that those things aren't going to go away. I would be an artist if there was nothing else to do in life. If I had UBI and I didn't have to work, I'd be an artist, right? Like I would
I agree
still
with you.
draw, I'd still create. So I don't think I'm special. I think other people would do it too. So I think that that's one of the things about artists is they unapologetically just have to make art, right?
Hmm.
Like and uh, the ethics of AI throw me for a loop because I don't want to be stealing, right? Like I just don't want to be stealing, and I want to make my own marks. I want it to be what I create. So, it's a lot of push and pull inside, about what I'm doing with it. But I always try to make sure that I'm trying to put something different and unique out. That's what
Sure.
I want. That's what I want to make sure.
So would you say then what we have right now with Gen AI is the next evolution of art? So for example, way back, people drew with pencils. Then, as technology got better, then you had different color palettes. You had watercolor, you had pastels, and we've gotten to a point where these are now your new crayons. Do you think
Yeah,
that's where we are?
yeah, but we still have crayons. We still have pencils. We still have paints. So I think it's not yet an art movement, but it is a new tool, right?
Hmm,
So yes, we're going to throw that in our toolbox. It's going to be there. How AR becomes an art movement is a much broader, there's a lot more to becoming an art movement than just being the new hot thing, right?
sure.
So I think that there's an opportunity for it, but the artists that are using AI, in my opinion, should stick to the medium meets the message. So talk about AI, use it, utilize it, talk about it, have themes around it. All Most of the art that gets noticed really pushes the message in your face, right? Like what it's saying, or at least you can easily decipher what it's saying. And I think that if you want to be an artist and use AI, those paradigms still apply.
Hmm. What advice would you give to an emerging artist and how they would navigate this intersection of traditional art and AI technologies?
Don't stop drawing, don't stop painting, don't
Awesome.
stop doing the art that you want to do,
Awesome.
and then just pick up AI as you can. I think that you should delve into the image processor. I can't play music, and I find the music generators to be amazing. Like
Ditto. I
for me,
can't
I can be like,
draw,
oh
and
my
so I
gosh,
find it.
I can actually express a song. Or
Mhm.
in my case, I really do want to do the video, so I think about background music for, a movie, right? So like when I get in there and I can spin up an orchestra, I'm just like, this is amazing, right? And of course, I think that a lot of musicians are like, well, it's stealing. And I can see how that is, right? I can see how you think that is. And I hope that we come to a good resolution. And I think that the companies that are creating the Gen AI products, um, you know, I, I hope that they're able to find resolution with the artists and the copyright holders.
Mhm.
It's a bigger question that I'm going to answer, that I'm going to be able to affect. And I see both sides. I don't, I wish that there wasn't such like venom from anti AI people
Mm.
towards people who use it. On the AI side, there's hype people that really need
Absolutely.
They need to
Lots of
tone
AI
it
bros
down a
out there.
bit, tone it down a bit,
Yeah.
like it's a cool tool, but it's not what, the hype people are saying it is, at least not yet,
Hmm.
we're gonna see the bubble burst. It's just inevitable. Nothing can go up forever. It's
Hmm.
just the way that's going to happen. But I think the Gen AI and the tools, I think the artists have fallen in love with them. People who aren't artists have fallen in love with them. It opens up a lot of things. We just need to get to a place in the industry where the content's ethically sourced, right? However we figure that out, I think that needs to happen. And on the artist side, the artist needs to be responsible for what they put out there. Say
Hmm.
it's a, and you probably will get some hate because anti AI people will throw it towards you, and then on the AI side, there's some people with venom there. They're talking about traditional artists being Luddites and whatnot. It's like, both sides need to tone it down a bit. It is just a tool, and there are fuzzy questions. There's fuzzy answers to some questions that we have, right?
Sure.
So I think time is what we just have to be patient.
Do you think that's how an artist can create, maintain their unique identity is keep doing what you love, keep doing what you're good at, but, also embrace this new toolbox that's available to you.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've gone from mixed media, if you ever worked in mixed media where you just get to play with everything, right? It doesn't have to be oil paint. It doesn't have to be certain types of markers. It can be all these different things. And I think that that's kind of the way AI could be. If your tool set is about imagery or, in this case, video, we're talking a lot about, if you're an editor, see how well you can edit with the AI tools. Maybe there's actually AI editing tools that you could use, or possibly that's what you don't do, right? Like you just use the image generators and the video generators and then you edit.
Hmm.
I think finding a way to put the tools to, I don't think you should use them just to use them. You should use them with an intent to figure out how they work and if they're going to be good for you. I've gone through several tools. I mean, Wamba came out and that was fun, but I didn't like anything that it produced, right? Like, so you have to also be okay with putting some of the tools down. I didn't like Midjourney, but
Hmm.
Midjourney is extremely popular. Everybody loves it, and that's fine. But I just didn't like it. I can't even really articulate why I didn't like them, except for the interface of Discord.
Got it. Got it. So, in your opinion, either artists or non-artists alike, uh, go and figure out what tools are out there. Is Midjourney your thing? Is Dolly your thing? Stable Diffusion your thing? Right? And figure out which one of these speak to you, basically, and see how it brings the best out of you.
Yeah, I wouldn't, take it as you feel comfortable. You can go all the way down to programming your own stuff, training your own
Right?
models, or you
Right.
can just stick with the interfaces that they're given to you, right? Like it's really, you can go as deep into it as you want to. And that sometimes might be daunting to people. It's daunting to me because I want to build the stuff that they give us. Like I
Hmm.
want to put it on my local computer, which means that for me to use it, it's going to take me 3 more weeks because I got to figure everything out,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm a
So
huge advocate of that. Train your own model, whether it's in your likeness, whether it's in, a different style that we talked about. In fact, before I even started posting anything on LinkedIn, that's what I was doing. I spent the last year basically learning how the algorithms work to train your own model.
yeah,
So I'm a big, big advocate of that, and I agree with you on that front.
yeah, it would be nice to just have that available, right?
Right.
Just all whatever you want. Like I want to train a new model on this style and go for it, right? And
Hmm.
it's there, but you have to be somewhat technical to kind of put the pieces together
You
still.
do. It helps. It helps to have a background in it. No, it doesn't mean you can't learn. Absolutely, people can learn, but it helps to have a background for now.
I guess that would be another thing for people who don't have an artistic background is that there's a lot that you can glean if you just learn the fundamentals of art,
Yes.
color,
Oh, you just
contrast, all the different things that you can learn about art, the fundamentals, right? Color contrast, form, composition,
yes.
subject or theme. Yeah, okay, anyway, I should know them by heart, right? But the more you understand those, the more that you will bring better things out of the AI.
Yep. And that actually goes on the technology side as well,
Right,
is
right,
I'm a huge advocate of learn the tech, right? Learn how are these things trained, right? What's an optimizer? What's a learning rate? What's a weight, right?
right,
How does this algorithm work? How does this thing know what a woman is, right? A man is, what blue eyes are, right?
right,
So take the time to learn all of that. And that's honestly one of the things that drives me a little bit crazy with the AI movement right now
right,
is, just because you can prompt it doesn't mean you understand it. And I'm a huge advocate of just, this is why I love open source. Take
right.
the time to learn it. It's right there in front of you, you know,
Yep, yep,
and that goes with
totally,
the art side as well. Yeah.
absolutely. Yep.
With all of that in hand, how do you think artists and technologists can collaborate together to create more ethical and a more sustainable, art ecosystem?
Artists have always banded together in co-ops and other, other groups to amplify their voice. And I think it's the same way now.
Hmm.
And you see it. You see it all over social media. You see the different groups of AI enthusiasts and artists that are banding together. I think the next level to that is having actual platforms where you
Okay.
gather and people specifically know, like, I'm going here to look at AI art, or I'm going here to look at this AI artist. I think that that's going to help put it in a position where, if there's something wrong with the industry as far as the ethics and whatnot, that group can deal with it. I think one of the problems that we have today is that intermix. We've got the AI art being awarded in contests, right? Being winning contests for regular artists or
Hmm.
photographers.
Hmm.
That's just, I don't like that at all, right?
Hmm.
Like, it's not a photograph. It's generated by AI.
Hmm.
I think for the foreseeable future that all of that should be a separate category altogether. I don't
Makes
think,
perfect sense.
right? But I do think we should have competitions and people should explore it and work with it. I don't think it should be shunned and kind of like put in a box, because the more you do that, the more it's going to become avant-garde and the better chance that it's going to be picked up, and become more and more popular. So
That makes perfect sense. And one of the things I was actually going to ask you is how do you envision the future relationship between AI and artists forming, right? What trends and developments do you see coming? And I'm guessing um, having specific places where let's say I want to go see this AI artist, right? Um, if there are any ethical issues, it's that forum that will deal with it, right?
yep.
And if I'm paraphrasing correctly, that's where you see the next artist technology relationship happening, AI and artist relationship happening.
Yeah, I think it's a stronger foundation than trying to break into the movie business, right? Like,
Hmm.
those institutions, and especially the art world, the art world has been working the way it's been working for hundreds of years. And that's one of the things that I think people missed out on when the NFT craze broke, right? Like, artists, everyone thinks, artists are susceptible to it because most of us are starving. We want to get paid from our art, and we're susceptible to the idea of new channels, new domain that people will buy our art. Yet you look at it and still it's only 10 to 5% that are successful, right?
Hmm.
Like, the old art world was the same way. You've got 10 to 5% that are successful. Everybody else, it's a hobby, it's a side project, or they're hungry. It didn't change with NFTs because it's the same paradigm. There's so many collectors that want so many different kinds of artists, and you either know the people and get in, to the groups that are going to sell it, or you don't know the people and you're just going to, you get to choose. You can go to flea markets and the sidewalk and sell your stuff for minimal amount of money, or you can hold out and try to network to get into the galleries and whatnot. Or you can figure out your own little style and market it, and have a plushie, or like, there's
Right.
there's only there's only a few channels that you can become really successful as an artist. So, and as a, unfortunately for commercial artists, their job is going to go away. I don't foresee a lot of commercial art sticking around just simply because the AI can do it. And if a company can save, $100,000 by not hiring a designer,
They're going to do so.
they're gonna say,
The
save that.
more the more things change, the more they remain the same.
Right, right.
Right. Let's get a little bit more into your world. Can you tell us how did your experience as an artist influence the creation of the artist collective?
Yeah, great. So the Artist Collective is actually myself and my partner Victor Rivera. He comes from a background of actually selling art, African art. He's import export of African art. So
Hmm.
that's what his history is for about 15 years. I hooked up with him when I wanted to start from the artist perspective, right?
Okay.
Like I think artists want help, need help, and I wanted to figure out some ways, possibly novel ways, to get artists to sell their work. My passion, or what I really want to do, is enable artists to make art. So if they need pencils, send them pencils. If they need a website, figure out a way to get them a website. If they want to explore Gen AI, figure out a way to help them figure out Gen AI. So my heart is with the artist. I really want to figure out ways to enable them to sell their work and become more known. I think that's where I come from.
Mhm.
And then luckily, Victor is very knowledgeable in the business side of collecting and selling. So together we make a pretty powerful team for the artists that are within our stable.
That's amazing. I don't think I've ever heard of someone doing that for an artist. Usually it's been, that starving artist cliche. It's, hey, you're on your own, figure it out. It's
Yeah, totally.
fantastic to know that there are people like you out there who are actively helping artists out there. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
we've got a lot of majority of our artists are actually traditional, older, established artists.
Hmm.
So we have several from South America who are established artists, and they sell in galleries all around South America. And they are with us because we empower them on social media. We work with them to get. One of them is it's really fun to have a group meeting with them because we've got some that 70, 75 years old that hate AI. They think it's the bane of everything. And then we've
Hmm.
got others that are 75 years old that think that it's the greatest thing in the world, right? So um, it's exciting to be around such a diverse group and then introduce them to the new technologies. A lot of them don't even, most of them would rather not even be on social media, right? But once they start seeing the responses and start seeing the community grow and that kind of thing, it keeps them interested, and a lot of them are interested in the new technologies. It's hard for them to watch young up and coming artists
Sure.
sell their NFTs, or now with the AI coming around, they're like, how do I sell AI? And I have to remind them, like, it's the same thing. There's channels that we have to figure out, channels, partners that we have to make, and break into different places. It's really there. It's even with the AI and the technology and the Zooms and everything else, it's still who you know, and the networking that it
Yeah.
really is the bottom of everything.
Again, the more things change, the more they remain the same, right?
Absolutely.
Do you see something similar happening in the world of AI where, let's say, somebody like you, the artist collective, will be doing this for AI artists? Do you see the future going that way?
Yeah, I would imagine so. Not very many AI artists that I have seen want to move into a physical medium,
It's
but
pretty new, yeah.
yeah, I think there'll be a convergence when the AI and the VR and the projection mapping, that kind of stuff, that when that starts mixing together a lot more, I think we might see more of the AR artists thinking about physical properties and physical worlds. I don't know. I think if you're that kind of artist, that's where you're gonna head towards, right? Like I see, painters, they may want to branch into other things, but it's quite possible that if you're a painter, all you want to make is paint
Hmm.
with Gen AI. I don't know. I mean, I like to use it for things that I just can't do by myself. I can't do the video. I've got. I started doing video 25 years ago, and all the things that I wanted to do, I can almost do now. So it's really, if you can't do something, if it enables you to do something, it really seems like an awesome thing.
Hmm. How do you think uh, just everyday people, regular people, help become a catalyst in the creative economy?
Yeah. Uh, Hold on, let me think about that one. Oh, because of the catalyst of the creative economy. Yeah. So the way I envision, the artist collective as a catalyst is we're trying to bring our artists into those worlds and also open up those new technology realms to the broader public. And collectors are what is the unwritten rule or the unwritten mission, right? Like we really want to bring collectors to the artists, and that's how the artist gets known. It's how they get sold. So it's about actually finding those networks of collectors who are interested in that kind of stuff, and whatever their works are. So right now, I think that group of collectors is just now kind of forming. Just now, kind of, they're probably spinning off of the Beeple, fans and other things like that. But I think that there's going to be a group of collectors that'll start to show up that will want the Gen AI.
Hmm.
Right now, probably for historical reasons, because
Hmm.
everything that's made right now is the first and new, and then later on they'll be looking for the refined masterworks that really hit.
With the artist collective, do you already see yourself or find yourself that balancing the integration of like traditional artistry with emergent technology? Do you have you already come across this?
Yeah, we started, with the NFT craze. We were part of
Okay.
that, and that would also cross over into the VR worlds and
Okay.
the spatial. So one of the first things that we were doing was bringing all of our artists into the VR world and getting all of their physical arts digitized and put into 3D objects, and we put them into spatial and places like that. So, that there is there is a lot of crossover and mesh right now. I know that VR was hot, and that bubble burst again.
Right.
Seems like every 5 years that one
Goes up
comes
and down, yeah.
back. Yeah. And then the NFTs did the same thing. So I think that all of those things are still building, right? Like they're still there. So I think that as the hype bubbles go up and pop and everything, I think that we're getting closer and closer to where mainstream and now digital natives. I don't know if we really know what Gen Z and what Gen Alpha are going to do with the technologies. I'm Gen X. I grew up without computers, right?
Yeah.
Even though I was around them all the time. The people who are born, today or even 20 years ago, they don't know a world without it. Now, whoever's born today won't know a world without Gen AI or
Right.
AI. I mean, I can't even fathom what that means, right? And to have that in your world your whole life, I mean, the internet, I can't imagine what that's like. Your whole life, you've got the internet.
Yeah.
You never questioned it. I mean, I see the difference, right? Like, I grew up in an era where you had the telephone book, and you know, you, you know,
You
it's
have to
like
feed quarters into a payphone.
I'll meet you on Saturday here at 10 o'clock, and sure enough, somehow we figured it out.
Right.
You went to the mall to find your friends. You
Right.
didn't have a phone. You just had to kind of find each other.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was a different world, but in a lot of ways, the technology of today has really put a strain on people. And I
Hmm.
think that the whole we're really missing the now. We're really missing what's happening around us right now because we're either thinking about the past or worried about the future.
Hmm.
There's a lot of breathing going on right now.
I don't disagree with you on that front, where we're either worrying about the past or worrying about the future, right? You touched upon something really interesting though. AI, or even just internet in general. Do you think it makes people more creative, having the capability of doing what we're doing? Or is it inevitably going to make people less smart? I can tell you, in my opinion and in my experience, it's actually made me more creative. Whether it's, hands-on hard coding, I code now more than I ever did without this stuff,
Yep.
right? Picture generations aside, I can't draw to save my life, but now I can visualize things. Even
Yep.
with music, I can start something, let's say on the guitar, and help AI kind of fill in those holes. So it's made me more creative, but I'm interested in your opinion.
Definitely. There's no doubt about it. I had spent 15 years kind of neglecting my artistic talents. And then when AI came out, after about 6 months of investigating it and seeing it and messing with it, I kept seeing things. I was like, I can do that.
Hmm.
I can, it's so like, as I saw those things, I was like, I know I can do that. I would want to do them, right? Like I want to make it because that's the artist in me. I want it to have my marks. I want to make it. And so that just grew on me little by little. And it really sparked me to, start drawing again, start painting again. And then I balance that, or I use the inspiration from Gen AI, right? Like I'll go in there and show me a bird picture of a jeweled bird or something,
Right.
right? And it shows me all these different things, right? Like I don't have to draw what it shows me, but it fills my mind with all these different things. And music's the same way. Like
You're the same way.
I don't have I just don't know music, but I can listen to it on through the AI, and I'm like, wow, this it fills my head with visions. It really inspires my creative juices to mess with it. But then the bad part about it is that I think that Gen AI in particular, the imagery, I think that that's really dopamine driven, right? Like it's really
Mm,
addictive. I saw myself, generate, 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 right? Um, I think that goes away the longer you use it, the more in depth you use it. Like when you're using the open source and you're building the tools and the workflows and all that, that kind of like instant hit isn't there, right? But when you're on Stable Diffusion and just click, 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 there's a lot of I think a lot of that reward system with dopamine versus the long drawn out accomplishment that you get out of creating something
yeah.
like art. I feel like I play a video game when I use the Gen AI, right?
You've got a point. You've got a point. So we just now, in the 5 minutes or so, talked about the two sides of the coin. One of which is the new generation doesn't even have internet anymore. How would you ever find your friends in the mall if you didn't have a cell phone, right? But on the other side, we talked about, man, I'm getting more and more creative now, right? So there's a plus and a negative.
Right.
How do we balance the two?
Yeah, I don't. Just I think that you have to be conscious of your time, right? Like it's the only reason that I enjoy AI the way I do enjoy it now is because of my lifelong experience and my training in art,
That
right?
right there. That right there. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't if I didn't have that, I don't think I would enjoy it, and I don't think it would inspire me. But because I have all of that experience and I can be like, oh, I want to see it in this lighting, or I want to see it specifically this angle, right? Like these kind of things I'm able to portray and coax out of the AI. So, I'm like, wow, I actually am able to see the things that are in my head. And, that's, it's inspiring. It's really, it gets me wanting to create.
I think you touched upon it perfectly right there. You put it into words better than I could. It's because of your past training as an artist, right? The examples you gave before, color palettes, contrast, lighting. It's because you're already trained in it that you are able to get the best out of what AI has to offer, right? And that's how you build your own fingerprints. That's how you make sure you're not corrupted, basically, right? Instead of constantly spamming that generate button,
Yep.
right? And I 100% agree with you. For me, for music, it's that lifelong passion of learning how to play, learning how to put a composition together, hearing voices. That's what's making me go, okay, now I've got this other tool in my hand that'll help me with what's already in here,
Yep.
right? And I think that's what makes creatives creative, right? So to round it out, um, and if you agree with me here, I think there needs to be a combination of both worlds. Still go through that hardship of learning, training yourself. Use to learn how to use this before you get to this,
Yeah.
right? And that's how you're going to get the best of all worlds.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think if you conscious of your time and force yourself to delve deeper into the fundamentals of whatever it is. Like if you're using LLMs to write, learn how to be a writer. Like
Writer,
don't make it do the writing for you because we understand now it's an average machine. It's gonna give you the average. You want to be an average writer, let ChatGPT write for you.
beautifully said.
If you want to be an average artist, let the diffusers make your pictures.
Hmm.
And that's just the way it's gonna be, right? Like
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Well, as we wrap up, please tell everyone, how can we get a hold of you? How can we
yeah,
get your attention?
yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Ken Newton, and then I'm found on socials at Infotrix, and then the Artist Collective is out there, theartistcollective.io,
Hmm.
kennewton.com. Definitely reach out if you have any questions or want to collaborate. Just shoot the breeze.
You're working on a product called Frequency. Please tell us what's Frequency.
So Frequency is my custom coded application that's used for audiovisual therapy and meditation. I've been building Frequency my whole career since early 2000s. I was a web developer and designer, so I know all the languages, I know all the frameworks and all that. But now, with the help of Claude and ChatGPT and the APIs, I've been coding everything vanilla, right? Like everything's myself. I'm not using any third parties. I'm not using any libraries, and it feels good, right? Like it really feels like mine, and I know the code inside and out, even though the LLM's been helping me. So, and I'm using
Wonderful.
Suno, right, for the music. Hopefully, I can get some musicians in on it, but having Suno and Udio to do the music has just been it's been freeing, right? Like I wouldn't have been able to do it without it. So
I will make sure all your links are either on comments or on the description. Ken, thank you so much.
yeah,
Fantastic conversation.
wonderful,
Fantastic conversation. I'm sure it's one that people are going to look at and really make them think. I really, really appreciate your time.
excellent. Thank you so much.